or alive. Wow, that's weird when you do that. That's why they do that, isn't it? That sounds bad. Do I sound like that? Yeah, that's gross. All right, well, so in the book of Psalms, so we started looking at, well, we kind of looked at a little bit of Psalms on Wednesday night, kind of an extra long introduction to the book of Psalms, and broke down into five, those five sections. Um, but what to preach today came up. It usually comes up the moment I'm done with a Wednesday night is, oh God, what am I going to do on Sunday? And there's so much. It's not like there's not enough. It's just picking the thing that seems appropriate. And so what's probably seeing and going on, and you might see this, is that what goes on in my life comes out on Sunday. So I'm going to talk about prayer this morning. And I'm not talking about prayer because that's what's going on in my life. I'm talking about prayer because it's not going on in my life the way it should. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say we could probably pray more. Probably. I'm just going to go out on a limb there after, looking at the book of Psalms, which is essentially a prayer, a list of prayers, types of prayers, going on for 150 chapters that I'm probably not praying as much as David did. So we could all probably improve our prayer lives. And since we're starting to take a look at the book of Psalms here, we should, understand what it is. It's a wisdom book. It's a book of prayers. It's a book of lamentations. It's a book of hope. It's a book of a lot of things. But I'd say if David prayed as much as he did, we should probably pray more. So we're going to take a look at two chapters of Psalms today. It's chapters 3 and 4. They're short chapters, but they're jam-packed full of information. And you should think of Psalms that way as you're reading the book. It's jam-packed with information. It's not a book that you read once and walk away from. It's a book that you read over and over again. And whatever you're going through in life seems to apply at that time. That's one of the magic things about the Bible is it doesn't matter what you're reading in the book of Psalms or where you're at in your life. There's something going to pop out and bite you or tell you something that you need to know or help you in some way. It's a magical book. Psalms 3 is called a morning prayer. And Psalms 4 is called an evening prayer. They're both called prayers of trust. And Psalm 4, I think, is more typical of a Christian's prayer life because when do Christians pray the most? Right before we go to bed. Right before we go to bed. It starts as little kids. Our parents teach us that little prayer. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul should take. That's great. You get your kids thinking about death right before they go to bed. Like, I might not wake up. Yeah, boy, you better get saved, boy. It's a good prayer. It's easy to remember, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not preaching against that. We did it. We taught our kids that. I was probably taught something like that by someone other than my parents because I had that same habit at night. Of course, I was there. Well, anyway. I had this weird prayer life, man. I mean, I had to say these prayers in the exact right order. I couldn't make a mistake or I had to start again. And at the end, nobody was in the room with me. This is all me in my head. Somehow this got in my head. If I didn't do it right, something bad would happen. And at the end was, God bless mom and dad and my sister and my and that. It had to be a certain order. And if I forgot anybody, you're right back in the beginning. So I prayed a lot as a kid. Didn't get a lot of sleep. I was up late praying all the time. But that was my routine was before I went to sleep, I pray. Before I went to sleep, I pray. So Psalm 4, the evening prayer, is probably indicative of our prayer life. And it's, that little prayer that we teach our kids, it's good. And we should get our kids thinking about eternity. We should get our kids praying, and that's all great. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with it. Nothing wrong with the evening prayer. But what we do with this behavior is we set up our prayer life for the rest of our life. That at the end of the day, we pray. And it's good. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's kind of like closing the barn door after the horse got out. You went through a whole day without praying. And then at the end of that day, I'm sorry, God, I did this. I'm sorry, God, I did that. I'm sorry, God, I did this. Help me not do that anymore. Help me this, not. The other thing, that's why Psalms 3 is the morning prayer. Psalms 3, the morning prayer, it's a prayer that David prays, by the way, when everything is falling apart around him. It lines up, so I'm told, with 2 Samuel chapters 15 through chapter 18, when Absalom chases him out of Jerusalem, chases him out of town. Now, David's had a lot of people chasing him around the country. Saul chased him around for a long time. And then they, finally Saul's dead. The kingdom's all united under David, and now Absalom's chasing him around. And this prayer that he prays in the midst of all this trouble is really a model for how a Christian ought to start our day. Proverbs 3:5 says, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not on thine own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, he shall direct thy path." How is he going to direct your paths unless he knows what you're looking for? I mean, I just say, if I pray in the morning, I'm less likely to wind up with a prayer life that night that says, "God, I'm sorry for this, I'm sorry for that, and I'm sorry for this, and I'm sorry for that," because I've already asked for guidance, and he can direct my path. I've already looked at his word, that light, that lamp that shines on my feet and my path can show me where I'm supposed to go. And maybe I'm more focused on it because I'm more aware of it. Sometimes the watch pot boils, actually.